Concurrent estates and land. Tenancy in common. An estate with multiple tenants in which each co-tenant owns a distinct, undivided interest and each has a right to possession of the whole estate. So characteristics are that it's freely transferable. So each interest is freely descendable, divisible, and alienable. Co-tenants' interests can be transferred upon death. Rent. A co-tenant can lease his individual interest, which transfers his right of possession to leasee. But co-tenants have a right to share in rents from the third-party lease. No survivorship rights. So upon death of a co-tenant, her interest does not pass by law to remaining co-tenants. Partition. A co-tenant may seek judicial partition. So there's division of property if not feasible, and property may be sold and proceeds apportioned among co-tenants. Then there's the modern law favors tenancy in common. It is the default concurrent estate. Joint tenancy. Creation. 4 conditions must concurrently exist when the tenants take their interest. So 1 is time. Joint tenants must take their interest at the same time. 2, title. Joint tenants must receive conveyance through the same instrument. 3, interest. Joint tenants must take equal and identical interests. And possession. Joint tenants must have equal possessory rights. So that's express intent required. So the grantor must expressly intend to create a joint tenancy. Otherwise, a tenancy in common is presumed. Rights of survivorship. If one joint tenant dies, surviving joint tenant automatically takes equal possession of deceased joint tenant share. Transferability. Alienable but not divisible or descendable. Severance and transfer of interest. Severance. Severance by any joint tenant creates a tenancy in common with respect to the severed interest. Transfer. A joint tenant interest becomes a tenancy in common upon transfer. This does not destroy the entire joint tenancy if 2 or more joint tenants remain. Mortgage. Lien theory, which is the majority, versus title theory, which is the minority. Lien theory jurisdictions, a joint tenant can take a mortgage on her interests without severing joint tenancy because the title passes to the mortgagee. In title theory jurisdictions, joint tenancy is severed if any joint tenant takes a mortgage on her interest because the title passes to the mortgagee. Then there's tenancy by the entirety. This is a marital estate similar to joint tenancy, but between married couple. The creation is created by a conveyance to a married couple and requires the same 4 conditions as joint tenancy: time, title, interest, and possession. Tenancy by the entirety is presumed in any conveyance made jointly to a married couple. Characteristics include right of survivorship, so the property automatically passes to surviving spouse. There is no right to convey or partition. One spouse may not unilaterally convey or partition her interests. The attempt to do so is invalid and will destroy the tenancy. Protected from creditors. Creditors of one spouse cannot reach the spouse's interests, only creditors of the couple. So joint creditors. It can reach a tenancy by the entirety. And then there's severance. 3 ways a tenancy by the entirety can be severed, which creates a tenancy in common. are 1, death by one co-tenant, 2, issuance of a divorce decree, and 3, execution by a joint creditor, such as foreclosure. Then there's co-tenants' rights and duties. The following rules generally apply to concurrent estate tenants. 1, possession. Each co-tenant has a right to possess the whole. 2, rent and profits. A tenant is not required to pay rent or reimburse co-tenants for tenants' use of land, but each co-tenant has a right to share in rents from a third party and profits derived from use of land that depletes its value. For example, timber, oil, gas, mining, etc. 3, adverse possession. So a tenant may not acquire title to the exclusion of co-tenants through adverse possession unless co-tenants are ousted for the statutory period. 4, carrying costs. Each tenant is responsible for his fair share to the taxes, interest, etc. 5, repairs. Tenant may seek contribution from co-tenants for reasonable repairs, but must inform co-tenants before making repairs. 6, improvements. No right to contribute to contribution from co-tenants for improvements, but tenant is entitled to credit for an increase in value attributable to the improvement, and also liability for any resulting loss. 7, waste. Tenant can bring an action for waste against co-tenants during the life of a tenancy. 8, partition or sale. Co-tenant may seek judicial partition if property cannot be divided. This is permitted to sell and apportion the proceeds. Co-tenants can agree not to partition, but only for a limited time. Otherwise, the agreement is void as a restraint on alienation.